Hey everyone, welcome back to our story podcast. We are the Fabulist duo, Michelle and Kristen. We're here and we got two new stories for you. And mine is, I think it's happy this time, this week. What's the feeling of yours?
Mine is upbeat and sweet and slightly comical, as per usual. That's my brand. I am always a very upbeat person. But we tried out something last week where we read our own stories just to see if if our reading style changed at all. And
not gonna do that again.
Yeah, we're gonna stick to reading each other's stories just because I like my stories, and I know Michelle likes her stories. I enjoy reading the surprise Michelle's stories to see if they are going to be happy or not.
That way you wake up in the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's more fun to just read each other's stories rather than to just reread our own stories.
But, thank you guys for the suggestion. Let's, on that note, head to our short stories for the week.
I'm going first, right?
Yeah, you go.
So, the first story we're gonna listen to is Kristen's story, and the prompt that was given last week was a witch is holding auditions for her black cat familiar. Here it goes. The tower bell rang and everyone funneled into the academy. Finally, a witches' academy in the city has opened up, allowing any of the children aged 9 to 15 with even a glimpse of magic in their veins the opportunity to hone their skills and become state witches. Now, just because these academies cater to the idea of becoming a state witch, there are smaller practices outside that allow for one to become a healer, maybe even a traveling witch. Many endless possibilities, as everyone that is gifted with magic has one specific talent that just comes easier to them. It's not to say that you couldn't learn these abilities, it just means that a witch born into a family of pyromancers would more likely handle fire magic easier than a cryomancer who handles ice. As everyone sat in the auditorium, a group of regal-looking witches approached the stage all dressed in their state uniforms. Depending on the color, you could tell their ranks, with black being the highest rank and white being the lowest. The only one in black was very tall and slender with a stern-looking face. She slammed her staff down on the table in front of her, which caused a huge shock wave throughout the crowd. Welcome, students! All of you here were lucky enough to be born with magic in your blood, and as such are able to serve your town by growing that power and protecting it. She looked over the crowd, seeing everyone sitting up straight at attention, trying their best not to seem like a bad student. Here at the Nyx Institute, we believe in tradition. A lot of witches out there have tarnished our practices. For your first lessons, you will need to find a familiar. A student raised their hand. Excuse me, ma'am. I actually have a familiar already. The student was dressed in beautiful silken garbs and looked around smugly at the other students. My parents bought me the best one suited to my abilities, she continued. The witch in black gave an impressed look and a slight nod toward the students. Please, come up here on stage and show everyone you're familiar. As the young girl sauntered across the floor towards the stage, she whistled softly and held her hand up. Upon reaching the side of the head witch, a small hawk-sized drake flew in through the window and landed on her forearm. The state witch looked slightly impressed again, then immediately her face scrunched up. This is exactly the type of mockery of tradition that I do not want to see here. If you wish to stay and learn here, you will get rid of this beast immediately. She lifted her hand and a strong gust of wind swept away the drake, tossing it out the window. Now, do you want to go with it or do you want to stay and learn properly? The little girl no longer had the smug look on her face, only terror. She was frozen in place, not sure how to respond, until the gust started swirling around her. Shortly after, she was lifted from her feet and was also thrown through the window. We are here to teach you how to be proper state witches, and that means maintaining your class and following the originator's practices. She hissed at the crowd of students. As I was saying, you will need a familiar, a black cat, and nothing else. People think getting something fancy like a drake will mean you are powerful, but cats have 9 lives and will use each one to protect you. She dismissed everyone. The now horrified group of young witches all bowed and rushed out the front door. One witch specifically ran out towards where that window leads to, in search of the girl that was tossed out earlier. In a small patch of grass, she found the girl brushing herself off and getting the bits of leaves out of her hair. "Hello, I'm Gwen. Are you doing all right? I can't believe she tossed you out like that. What if you were seriously injured?" Gwen's eyes were wide and filled with concern for the discarded girl. "Oh, that's just the thing my mom and I do to instill fear in the new generation of witches. I'm fine." As she finished brushing herself off, the drake from earlier landed on her shoulder and transformed into a black cat. "I'm not actually a student here, but it does help with keeping all of the younger witches in check." Gwen was dumbfounded by this. This girl lets her mom throw her from windows on a regular basis. It wasn't her place to judge, so she just moved on and went to look for her new familiar. Gwen had a very different way of doing just about everything, so she was struggling with the idea of the state witches requesting that everyone be traditional and do things the same. While wandering the streets looking for a familiar, she decided it would be best to head somewhere less populated, as the number of witches currently scouring the city in search of a black cat was making things difficult. She decided to head out towards the forest on the way to a secret hideout she often goes to when wanting to just relax and be with nature. Upon arriving in her hideout, she decided to use her natural gift to get things set up. Gwen's talent was the ability to communicate with nature, and no one really knew to what extent. Her parents were very shocked by this, as her mother's family mainly dealt with water and healing, while her father's family was focused on divination-based magic. Sincerely and politely, she asked the trees if they could move their roots to create a stage in the clearing, and they did. She then asked the wind if it could carry a message across the land to all the black cats, that if they wish to be a familiar, they can audition here in the woods. Gwen sat in front of the stage and whistled while waiting. She heard a slight rustling in the bushes around her, and out popped a bunch of black cats. She asked that they all line up and go on stage one at a time in an orderly fashion, and so they did. One cat entered the stage dramatically with a top hat on its head, with little holes for its ears to poke through and a cane in its mouth, and tried to dance. Gwen had a giggle and signaled for the next cat to enter the stage. Each cat displayed an extraordinary ability of its own that made the decision harder and harder for Gwen. After a long day of auditions, all the cats were exhausted from their performances and having walked here from who knows where they came from. Gwen was having a really tough time clearing her mind because of how many amazing auditions there were. She really wished that she could just have them all, but on her non-existent salary, she couldn't get enough milk and tuna for them all. "I'm sorry, everyone. I really need time to think. You are all so wonderful. Please feel free to stay here and just..." She was cut off by a soft, beautiful sound of singing.
La 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 la.
Out of the bushes strut a small black cat with its mouth open and seemingly being the one singing. Every step they took, the grass got lusher, flowers started to grow, a sweet fragrance filled the air, and everyone's exhaustion was swept away. "Come meow. I hope I didn't miss the auditions." The cat spoke in a sweet, soothing voice. After taking in this astonishing sight and breathing in this mind-clearing fragrance, Gwen stood up and announced, "I finally have decided. My mind is clear and my exhaustion is gone thanks to this brilliant display." The cat gave a slight bow, proud of its work. I choose the cat with the top hat and cane. All of the cats meowed to each other in confusion. To assist me in setting up a ceremony for my next grand idea, and to welcome my new familiar, she exclaimed as she pointed at the common cat on the stage. Thanks to your ability, my busy mind filled with all these crazy ideas finally got sorted out. Having a familiar like you by my side would definitely help me not only grow as a witch, but push forward in changing our witching world. The cats continued meowing in confusion, and a lot of them were really sad that Gwen did not want them. Do not worry, everyone. I have an idea. She whispered to the wind again, and moments later the bushes rustled once more. All of the young witches from the academy earlier who had not yet found their familiars flocked the area and were in awe by its beauty and the adorable scene of a ton of cats hanging out. The next day, on the way back to the academy, with her new familiar, she thought to herself, do I really want to become a state witch where they will block my creativity and turn me into another one of their puppets? Would I one day throw my kid out of a window just to make a point? So many questions came to mind, and all of them told Gwen that this place isn't right for her. Many powerful witches paved their own path and did not require the use of an academy. Gwen wanted to be more than a state witch. She wanted to one day open her own school that allows all kinds of practices and encourages creativity. With that, she went back home and explained to her parents that she wanted to go traveling to find answers. To keep her parents' mind at ease, she explained that she had a plan of using her abilities and her partner's abilities to grow flowers and herbs, selling those as a traveling merchant while also learning from those they meet on their adventure. If there is one good thing that this academy did provide her with, though, is her newfound familiar that would help keep her mind on track and sort through her ideas constructively.
Yeah.
That was cute. I really like that.
Right? I know you like the part where the girl got tossed from the window.
Yeah.
So let me just go back to that scene just for a moment, because I was typing, and when I was writing the scene, I made a typo, and I died and could not write for the next hour because I died.
Uh-huh.
She whistled softly and held her hand up. Upon reaching the side of the head witch, a small hawk-sized drake flew in through the window and landed on her forehead. I couldn't. Because, like, I'm just imagining the claws. Like, I don't know. I just typed, and then that accident, and I was like, that's a good accident. And then I couldn't write anymore. And then I did.
And then I had to.
And then I did.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Good. I was hoping it didn't sound like too like rude when she told the cat, like the top hat cane cat, that she was like, yeah, I'm gonna choose you to help me do something else.
No, that was really rude. That was really rude.
Okay, but like the cat, I don't know if anyone realizes, is auditioning for not being a familiar. They thought it was like a play or a musical, like Cats the Musical. Like, what does you having a top hat and cane have to do with helping me further my magic?
Yeah, I suppose. I just thought they do that. Like, look how my ears go through the hat. Look. Does that would help me further my magic.
Do I not amuse you, Master?
Exactly.
I know for a fact that cat is adorable. I could see it in my head. It's the cutest. It has like little ears poking through, and it just has this cane, and it jumped up on its back hind legs, and it's like
Especially.
And like, I knew you would love talking like a cat for that one part, because
oh, why did you think I would love that? I have to say this?
You have to say this.
Okay. I don't even know if I can. Come meow.
Excellent. Oh, you know, everyone would.
Oh, yeah.
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 So by now, everyone should realize I like to add things in my story that I know Michelle would hate to read out loud. And I think it's
hate
a
the
better
Nyan.
thing. I think it's better for all of us. But yeah, no, I'm glad that you enjoyed it and had fun with that one, because I had so much fun writing it. Like, as soon as you said, here's the prompt, get a Black Cat audition, I immediately saw a stage with a black cat in a top hat and cane dancing in front of a person. And I'm like, that's my story. And then everyone got tossed out the window.
Yeah, window tossing is my pastime.
Excellent.
And I'm glad that you showed it so accurately, as the gravity takes the girl and puts her on the ground.
I think just one thing further is that people might think that the window I'm referring to is like those like leveled windows from the same story. It wasn't. But
just so you know, she broke some things when she fell.
Yeah, like a whole tree. But it's a good, it's fun, the whole witch thing and whatever, great. Because then it segues us to our next part of this, which is your story of, I gave you the prompt of, you're married to a famous stage magician who is always trying to spice up your marriage. Just gonna put a warning here. I don't know if Michelle made this PG-13 because...
Oh, hey, then I would put the warning. Hello.
I know. Let's get to it. This story is called My Wife, the Mind Reader. When I was growing up, telepathy was no joke. Always knowing everything that everyone was thinking and feeling at any one time was definitely not something that they appreciated. My parents were constantly thinking of ways to get rid of me or get away from me, while knowing that I knew exactly what they were thinking. I was young, and it wasn't until much later that I figured out how to hide my ability and act normal. I spent my childhood in a constant state of fear, never getting any peaceful sleep in the house I grew up in, always on edge. It was one thing to have paranoid thoughts about how everybody was your enemy, but it was an entirely different thing to know that as a fact. They thought of me as a monster, a liability, a burden, but never a daughter. When I finally figured out how to live on my own, I left the house right away. But that proved to be even more difficult as I learned different things from other people's thoughts that I shouldn't know. Some people's thoughts were disturbing enough to make me miss the hurtful thoughts of my parents, almost making me turn back and go home a few times. But I'd be insane to give up freedom so easily. Even in my state of self-loathing and anxiety, I knew that an ability like this was priceless. I had the power to affect any given situation with a slip of the tongue, so obviously selling information like this would be the best way to survive. I spent years building up a convenient reputation for being the most reputable source of information on the streets of the city I lived in, and also a reputation for being impossible to find. I usually kept my eyes and ears open for anyone that needed me, and I chose my work myself. Call it paranoia, or call it a business practice, but I never showed up in the same place twice. My roster of work clients kept growing by the day. It seemed like the city was revealing more of its secrets to me, which was good for business, but bad for my stress levels. The thoughts of people were generally the same everywhere, and I was able to hear all of them at once within a radius. Still, sometimes they overwhelmed me, like in times of public upheaval. During these times, I would cancel all of my appointments and stay in my bed until the surge of thoughts died down. The last time I had to do that, I heard one mind playing a soft melody over and over again and decided to just listen to it, allowing it wash over me and drown out the other sounds. It stopped suddenly, and I had lost the source of it in an instant. It could have traveled out of my listening radius, or it could have been snuffed out. There was no way of knowing for sure, being in the state I was in. A A few days after that ordeal, I was heading to the rendezvous point to meet with a client. I always made sure to show up an hour early so that no one could take me by surprise. And if someone was there before me, I would leave immediately, no matter how much the pay was. Another neurotic business practice I developed. The client today was different. He had hired me for a covert mission. I didn't normally take those, but this one was interesting, and I was the only one with the information he needed. I was to go undercover as a husband and wife team with him, a famous internationally wanted thief. The criminal in question wasn't violent, but in fact succeeded in every heist using nothing but elaborate tricks and illusions. They called him a magician because of how stupefying his stunts were. As I approached the rendezvous point, I stopped in my track because I could tell he was already waiting for me. There was no way he'd be able to tell I was there at all because I sensed his presence from quite a distance away. I almost decided to skip this meeting and call the whole thing off if it wasn't for the fact that I was admittedly interested in his shows. Besides, if we were going to act married, we'd have to be close anyway. I circled around the meeting point, changing the direction I was coming from, and walked into the alley, shrouded in as much darkness as possible. I didn't hear any other thoughts around us, meaning that we were alone. Also, there weren't any malicious thoughts in his mind. However, I was still on high alert. Even though this was a special case, I had never broken a business practice for any of my clients before. He was leaning on the brick wall of the alleyway, seemingly creating a small flame from thin air. I had already searched his memory to check if he had brought any weapons. Besides normal things like a wallet and keys, all he had on him were his magic trick toys. "You're late," he said as soon as he noticed me. "You're early," I grunted back. He already knew too much about me. He knew that I made sure to always be there before the client, and seemed to have been waiting for a few hours already just to agitate me. "Running low on funds?" he asked, not looking away from his flames. He also knew that I had been MIA for a few days, and that I hated idle chit-chat. Reading his mind, I had to admit, he was starting to agitate me. Ignoring his question, I asked, "Since we're both early, I expect we'll be picked up early?" "Nope," he said, still playing with his lighter. Any interest I was feeling earlier was quickly fading. From the depths of his mind, I faintly heard a soft melody that had calmed me nights before. Was it a coincidence that he also knew that song? "Then, can you brief me on the mission?" I asked, trying not to lose my patience. Asking these questions out loud always brought the answers right to the forefront of the mind, so even if the person didn't want to tell me out loud, I could read it from their mind without any effort. With that, an entire elaborate plan was folded out before me. We were to infiltrate a museum as husband and wife as they were unveiling a crystal skull. I had inner working knowledge of that particular museum's security, and he needed me to help navigate the system to set up his next show, so that he could make the skull disappear right before the eyes of all the patrons in the museum. For now, we just had to wait for his ride to show up. Nope, too risky to talk about it here. Again, not once looking up from his lighter. I was conflicted. I wanted to leave, but I also wanted to see how he was going to pull off such an ambitious heist. We both stood there, bracing on either side of the alleyway in an awkward silence, my arms crossed, foot tapping, and him just playing with the lighter with one hand and the other in his pocket. "Don't you want to know how it works?" He broke the silence, looking at me. He raised his hand, holding the flame upwards. I didn't like where his thoughts were going. He was thinking about showing me his stupid magic tricks until the car got here. "You have a trick lighter," I said to try and curb his enthusiasm. He frowned. have you seen this trick already? Yes, you're not very original, are you? Immediately, I knew I said too much because his mind switched into overdrive and he was thinking of all kinds of tricks to show me. He clearly took that as a challenge. He started showing me trick after trick that I would probably be able to figure out even if I couldn't read minds, using simple toys with hidden compartments and trying to fool my eyes with fancy card tricks. After I had exposed that his floating coin trick was done using hidden magnets in his sleeves, it seemed like he had finally given up. "Oh, come on," he cried. We were both sitting on the ground with toys scattered everywhere. I wasn't a vengeful person, but it was nice to annoy him after he had annoyed me. "This marriage is going to be really boring if you already know all of my tricks." "Does it need to be exciting?" I mused. "Yes. And also, a magician has to be the smartest person in the rooms at all times, or the trick won't work." His whining was kind of funny. "Well, I can't make myself dumber for you," I laughed. That seemed to really aggravate him. He stood up and he blurted out, "Well then, explain to me how I did my last heist if you're so smart." His reactions were already funny enough, but I couldn't help myself, and I read his mind and explained to him step by step how he did his own trick. Apparently, he was so shocked that his knees gave out and he collapsed to the floor. Suddenly, it wasn't funny anymore. Not because he fell, I couldn't care less about that, but because of what I started seeing in his mind. Instantly, I was overwhelmed with thoughts and memories coming from him, like a dam had been holding back, and more appropriately, hiding thoughts and memories in his mind, and they were all released at once. There was a dull, radiating pain coming from my temples, and I instinctively pulled my knees to my chest and held my head in my hands, doubling over in pain. There were memories of him trying to find me. There was this curiosity about how I knew the things that I knew, and of how the whole mission I read in his mind earlier was just another one of his tricks. Once the cacophony of thoughts and emotions died down a bit, I could hear the thoughts in the forefront of his mind again, and my blood ran cold. I knew it. You can read minds. This sensation of flooding memories with confusion was familiar. I had felt it before, but not this strong. "Hypnosis," I said, with barely a whisper. I heard that soft melody humming in his head again, and the pain in mine subsided. I was weak and scared, but I still managed to ask, "Did you hypnotize yourself?" He was sitting next to me with a mixture of worry and excitement in his eyes, afraid to answer. "There's no car coming for us. You planned this whole thing to meet me, made up a fake mission, and hypnotized yourself to forget, so that I couldn't read your mind?" I heard my own voice getting louder, but I didn't care anymore. I was standing now, hands balled into fists, looking down at him. I felt stupid. No one had ever tricked me like this in my life. He rose to his feet in a panic, with hands up as if he was trying to calm a wild animal. I'm sorry. I didn't know it would hurt you. There was no way to find you, and if there wasn't any work, you wouldn't. I just wanted to meet you." Everything he was saying was true. The panic in his voice was echoed in his mind, and there was also worry that he would never see me again. I could feel my face heating up. How could this absolute stranger have played me like a fiddle so easily? How could he think this was a good way to meet somebody? I know it was impossible to find me without work, and it's true that I would leave the minute I read any of that in his mind, but this was ridiculous. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down while he was still trying to explain himself. Still angry beyond belief, but also curious about one thing. I crossed my arms and interrupted him. How did the hypnosis come undone? He paused, wondering if he should tell me or not, but I already knew as soon as I asked the question. "It came undone when I was able to describe your latest heist correctly," I asked for confirmation. He nodded at me, then continued slowly, "Can we start over again?" He held out his hand for a handshake. "My name's Oliver." I kept my arms crossed and stared at his hand, still angry, wondering if I should just disappear and never see him again. I felt the growing nerves in his mind, and finally said, I am running low on funds. Pay my rent this month and I'll think about it, I said sternly. He couldn't tell if that was a joke, but he laughed anyway, dropping his hand to his side. I'll buy you dinner too if you're hungry, miss... He let his sentence hang in the air, waiting for me to finish it with my name. Quinn, I said. And yes, I am hungry. Yay!
What do you think?
It's good. It's good. It's good. It's funny because it was like, it is happy. It is sad. It's one of those bittersweet stories again, just because of the overwhelming emotions that she feels through other people. And from being ostracized herself her whole life. So...
Yeah. So, like, I was originally writing it, like, sickeningly sweet. To the point where I'm like, it. This is, like, the second time I've done this, too, where I start writing something just... I guess happy, and then I'm like, this is making me nauseous. And then I completely rewrite the whole thing. This happened twice so far, so I think I'm physically unable to write a happy story, like a fully happy story.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
Well, this is happy to me.
No, this is happy. It is. I really wonder, Quinn could have potentially been super happy if she had embraced her ability growing up or things like that. But people are scared of the unknown, so.
Yeah, well, the thing I was thinking of with this is that, I don't know. To me, it's like if you have the ability to read minds, well, basically this is what I would do if I had the ability to read mind. I would become like an information broker for like the government or something like that. For her, she has this like radius where she can read all the minds in that radius. And like she's always hearing everybody thinking at once. So over the years, as long as it's at like a certain level of noise, she's able to just kind of live with it and then like pick out which voices she's trying to, and like zero in on which voices she's trying to hear in that radius. And then she uses that as she like does her job to make sure she's never in danger. So she's always looking for any voices that are close to her or like close to where she's meeting her clients to see if anybody's thinking about like, a plan to kidnap her or something like that. So she's has this like anxiety that's just how she is from working at her job of like being an information broker for like underground groups and stuff like that. She also continues with it because she likes knowing everything and she's good at it. So that's just basically what I wanted to write. And
well, that's the thing. She embraced her ability and she decided to accept herself the way it is instead of thinking she's a monster, which is good.
Yeah. So that's what she ended up doing. And then like my original idea was to have her just be psychic. I thought it would be cute if it was a husband and wife pair where the husband's the magician and she's psychic. And even though he's a magician, he can't like surprise her because she's always figuring it out.
Yeah.
But then like I went in some other direction entirely. I'm like, wait a minute, I have to add.
No, I mean like I can see Oliver and Quinn being together because Quinn is getting to do the fun thing of having someone to agitate and constantly agitating someone who's annoying. Mm-hmm. So, bonus for her.
Yeah. So, so I liked how it turned out. I got all the things I wanted in there, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, I like this because the thing is, when people are listening to our stories and we're hearing the different writing tones and stuff. And, you know, I wouldn't say my stories are sickeningly sweet, but they're cute and humorous. While Michelle, you write bittersweet cuteness. So it's like, you know?
Delicious.
Yeah. So we both have like a good thing going here.
But
So much sugar.
so much sugar.
Yeah.
So for next week, your prompt is a vegan farmer is going to accidentally grow living vegetables using magic fertilizer, and he's going to be conflicted about eating them.
Okay. So I'm the farthest thing from vegan for everybody out there. I can't go through a single meal unless it has some form of meat in it. This is gonna be tough for me, but fine. Be that way. Well, you know what? Just because you're thinking sickeningly sweet and all that stuff, I have one for you that is going to be hilariously sweet, and you're not going to be able to make this bittersweet or sad or whatever. It's just going to be happy and cute and fluffy. A woman is a mafia boss, but her husband is the lead detective. Now, in the streets, they're always at war, but once they come home, they just act like nothing happened.
I could totally make that bittersweet and sad. You know what's gonna happen? They're gonna lose their son in a street fight, and they're gonna get home and pretend he didn't exist.
So, like I said, you saw Jimmy out there? Yeah, but he got in the way.
He got in the way. Did you see Jimmy out there? Who? Oh, that's right. We don't have a Jimmy. There was never a Jimmy.
We don't have a son. You know, I think this can go many ways, but in my mind, I see this being really adorable. I see this being an anime. I see this being good.
It is an anime. It's called... There's plenty, probably.
Probably. Well, that's our stories for this week. We hope you all enjoyed them, and we hope you do tune in next week again for some more fun stories.
Thanks for listening again. Same place, same time next week. Yes?
Maybe.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, let's read your last paragraph.
Oh.
Let's see. I awoke to a warm ass on my cheek.
we was touching asses.
We will touch your butts. Speaking of it, I was watching a comedy.
We touching butts.
And hold on, I'm gonna stop the recording because we're just gonna get a lot of nonsense.